We are live.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as you're able and join me in the welcoming of City Council and the playing of the national anthem and the reading of the invocation.
Would you please remain standing if you're able as I read the invocation to begin the March Council meeting. As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities are laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness, where freedom prevails and where justice rules. We acknowledge the rich history of this land, which includes the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples. Today, there are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples who live or work in the city. The intent of this acknowledgement is to recognize our responsibility to use and take care of these lands responsibly and respectfully, while remembering the generations past and considering the generations yet to come. We respect and seek to continue to promote the long-standing relationships with the area's First Nations, the Six Nations of the Grand River First Nation, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Indigenous peoples who reside within the city of Brantford. Let us also not forget those who've served our community and who are no longer with us, so we can continue to do the work that we must in their memory. Please be seated. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councillor Samwell.
Here.
Councillor Hunt.
Present.
Councillor Martin.
Here.
Councillor Caputo.
Present.
Councillor Sokoli.
Here.
Councillor Van Tilborg.
Here.
Councillor Sless.
Present.
Councillor McCreary.
Here.
Councillor Sullivan.
Present.
And Mayor Davis.
Present.
Through the chair, roll call's been taken.
On November 25th, 2025, in an effort to be more transparent, City Council approved a closed meeting protocol policy which requires council to report out of closed sessions at an open session meeting. So this is to advise the community that council met in closed session at 4 p.m. today to consider matters that it is permitted to do so under the Municipal Act in camera and as listed on the public agenda. In the continuing interest of transparency and open government, I'm reporting to the public the outcome of today's closed session meeting, as I am permitted to do so in accordance with the Municipal Act and Brantford policies. There was one matter regarding legal advice regarding settlement of an OLT matter regarding a property municipally described as 501 Shellard Lane, Part 2. Council received legal advice regarding the proposed OLT settlement relating to those lands, and staff were given direction on how to proceed. So I'll move to declarations of a conflict. Does anybody have a pecuniary interest and need to declare regarding any of the items on this evening's agenda? I see Councillor Sless, you raised a hand.
Yes, I'm just getting the, it's the
the minutes of the John Noble home. I believe it's 11.6, 11.7, as I have a family member that works at the John Noble home.
Anyone else? Seeing no raised hands, that deals with that issue. So we'll deal with the separation of items in the committee reports. So we do have the aforesaid minutes of the John Noble home that will be separated because of Councillor Sluss's declaration. We also have 12.1.1, which is the Power Line Road Transportation Capacity Environmental Assessment, as we have a delegation to speak to that matter. Likewise, 12.3.14, the Glenhurst Art Gallery, gift of de-accession to art. And that is because there's also another delegation on that item. So are there any other items contained within the committee reports that council wishes separated for discussion purposes? Seeing no raised hands. Councilor McCreary.
Mayor, I have two. The first is 12.3.2, which is the Municipal Election Compliance Audit Committee report. And the second is 12.4.5, which is honoraria and expenses for the year 2025.
Seeing no raised hands. So it looks like we have about 5 items that'll be separated. With that, Councillor Hunt, I believe you have the motion to approve the items that are not separated for discussion purposes.
I do. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Samwell, that all items contained within the committee reports, items 12.1 through 12.5, not separated for discussion purposes, be approved.
Right before I call the vote, I'll ask the clerk to read the title of the items that we're voting on.
Okay, so all the items that are subject to the vote are as follows: from the Committee of the Whole Operations Report, item 12.1.2, Children's Water Festival; 12.1.3, City of Brantford Drinking Water System Annual Summer Report; 12.1.4, Mutual Aid and Assistance Agreement for Ontario Wastewater Water Agency Response Network; 12.1.5, Apps Mill Nature Center Partnership Agreement; 12.1.6, Wastewater Operations 2025 Annual Summary Report; 12.1.7, Code of Conduct Neighborhood Associations. From the Social Services Committee Report, 12.2.1, 2025 Point in Time Count; 12.2.2, Annual Centralized Housing Waitlist Update; 12.2.3, City of Brantford Encampment Network 2025 Annual Update. From the Committee of the Whole Planning and Administration Report, 12.3.1, Adoption of Economic Development Community Improvement Plan; 12.3.3, Brantford Heritage Committee Report; 12.3.4, Community Involvement Framework, Adoption of a Revised Framework Policy; 12.3.5, Delegation of Authority during Restricted Acts; 12.3.6, Franchise Agreement with Enbridge Gas; 12.3.7, Gender-Based Violence Awareness Campaign; 12.3.8, Municipal Code Chapter 26 Procedural Updates; 12.3.9, Addressing the Impact of Vacant and Derelict Buildings and Properties; 12.3.10, Fire Pumpers Procurement; 12.3.11, Proposed Amendments to Chapter 206 Animal Control; 12.3.12, 2026 Fire Fit Regional Championship; 12.3.13, Fireworks Usage Review from the Finance Committee Report; 12.4.1, Development Charges Bylaw Extension; 12.4.2, Mileage Reimbursement Rate for 2026; 12.4.3, Fourth Quarter Casino Update; 12.4.4, Financial Lease Policies, Establish Non-Material Lease Categories for 2026; 12.4.6, Preliminary 2025 Year-End Variance Report; 12.4.7, Quarterly Reserve and Reserve Fund Update; 12.4.8, quarterly status report for contracts awarded. From the planning report, 12.5.1, zoning bylaw amendment application PZ 0126, housekeeping amendments to the City of Brantford zoning bylaw 124, 2024.
Call the vote.
All items not separated for discussion purposes carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Members of council vote in favor: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste McCurry, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
So we have no statutory public hearings tonight, nor do we have any recognitions of achievement. But we do have 8 proclamations on tonight's agenda, as I did approve 2 late submissions regarding annual sports awards and Youth Sports Appreciation Week. So Councillor Sullivan, I believe you have the motion to move all the proclamations. Would you please confirm your seconder and then go on to read proclamation 8.1?
Absolutely. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Coley, that the following proclamations be approved. World Autism Awareness Month, CALSA Day of Celebration, National Volunteer Week, Earth Week, National Day of Mourning, Brantford Youth Week, 20th Annual Sports Awards and Recognition, Youth Sport Appreciation Week. Moving on to 8.1. Where autism is a complex, lifelong development disability that typically appears during early childhood and can impact a person's social skills, communication, relationships, and self-regulation, and whereas autism is defined by a certain set of behaviors and is a spectrum condition that affects people differently and to varying degrees, and whereas there is no known single cause of autism, and whereas early diagnosis helps a person receive the support and services that are needed, which can lead to an improved quality of life. And whereas in recognition of this month, members of the community will be invited to gather at Harmony Square on Thursday, April 2nd, 2026 at 4 p.m. as they raise the autism awareness flag and light Harmony Square and City Hall with the lights of the spectrum for one full week to promote awareness. To acknowledge and honor the many organizations that support Brantford families who are impacted by autism. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims the month of April 2026 as Autism Awareness Month in the City of Brantford.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Secoli, if you read 8.2.
Thank you. CALSA Day celebration, April 13th, 2026. Whereas Sikhism is a religion founded in the state of Punjab by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, who laid the foundation for a distinct and unique monotheistic faith based on principles of equality, freedom, service, and justice for all, regardless of color, caste, creed, or religion. And whereas rulers tried to crush the faith at that time, and in 1699, Khalsa Panth was established to face the challenges. And whereas during the British rule, thousands of Sikh joined the army in the First World War and again in the Second World War. About 75,000 soldiers sacrificed their lives in the First World War, and about 88,000 soldiers gave their lives for freedom. Over 1 million wounded in both the wars. And whereas Sikhs have lived in Canada since the early 20th century and contributed to the growth and prosperity of Canada. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims April 13th, 2026 as Khalsa Day of celebration.
Thank you, Councillor Secoli. Councillor Samuel, if you read 8.3.
Thank you. National Volunteer Week. So whereas Brant Regional Association of Volunteers Administrators, BRAVA, wishes to bring recognition and encouragement of citizen participation in National Volunteer Week, taking place in 2026 between April 19th and 25th. And whereas Volunteer Canada has declared this year's theme as National Volunteer Week, Ignite Volunteerism, and whereas this theme focuses on elevating civic participation, rebuilding volunteer infrastructure, and sharing stories and renewing the culture of volunteering across the country. Now therefore it be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims that the week of April 19th to 25th as Volunteer Week and celebrates and recognizes the value of community volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCurry. If you'd read 8.4, Earth Week.
Earth Week is April 19th through 25th of this year. Whereas the first Earth Day was celebrated in 1970 with the goal of inspiring environmental awareness and encouraging the conservation, protection, and appreciation of our nation's natural resources. And whereas Earth Day is an historical event that takes place around the world on April 22nd every year, and this year will be the 56th anniversary. And whereas Earth Day is now a global event that allows citizens to come together to raise awareness of the importance of protecting the planet and its natural resources and reducing dependence on non-renewable resources. And whereas Earth Day has evolved into a week-long event to provide education and outreach beyond one day. And whereas the IPCC's 2018 special report on global warming indicates an urgent need to limit the increase in the global mean surface temperature from pre-industrial levels. And whereas climate change represents the greatest challenge to the future of humanity and the life support systems that make our world habitable. And whereas the city of Brantford declared a climate emergency in 2019, and whereas the steps we can take to protect and preserve our natural environment through education, partnerships, and positive action should be encouraged in the city of Brantford. And whereas in honor of Earth Week and to demonstrate commitment to the protection of our environment, the city of Brantford will be hosting the annual Clean Brantford Litter Pickup event on April 17th and on April 18th of this year, hosting the annual community tree planting event on April 25th, and seeking nominations for the Green Environmental Awards by April 26th. Now therefore be it resolved that Brantford City Council hereby proclaims the week of April 19th through 25th of this year as Earth Week in the city of Brantford, and that City Hall be illuminated green in honor of Earth Week.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Councillor Van Tilburg, if you read 8.5, National Day of Mourning.
National Day of Mourning, April 28th, 2026. Whereas the city of Brantford is strongly committed to a safe and healthy workplace to ensure that its workers are safe while on the job. And whereas the federal and provincial governments recognize April 28th as the day of mourning to provide citizens, businesses, and municipalities with the opportunity to remember and mourn workers who have lost their lives, suffered injury or illness on the job, or experienced work-related tragedy. And whereas we recognize this day is not only an opportunity to remember and honor those lives lost or injured due to workplace tragedy, but also a day to collectively renew our commitment to improve health and safety in the workplace and prevent further injuries, illnesses, and deaths. And whereas flags will fly at half-mast this day to honor this National Day of Mourning, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims April 28th, 2026 as National Day of Mourning, and encourage all to recognize the importance of safety in the workplace.
Thank you, Councillor Van Tilburg. So now move to Councillor Hunt, if you'd read Brantford Youth Week.
Whereas, Brantford Youth Week, May 1st through 7th, 2026. Whereas National Youth Week takes place from May 1st to May 7th each year. During this week, communities around Canada host local arts, environmental, literacy, sports, and recreation events to celebrate and recognize youth for their positive contributions to communities. And whereas the Brantford Youth Council, a group of over 25 youth representing all city wards, continues to be a proud host of Youth Week in partnership with the city of Brantford. And whereas Brantford Youth Week is connected to the Empowering Youth Strategy, which demonstrates the city of Brantford's ongoing commitment to fostering a community where youth can thrive, outlining priorities and actions to continue supporting opportunities for youth engagement and leadership. And whereas the city of Brantford is committed to doing work with community partners, including youth, parents, and caregivers, and youth-serving organizations to enhance opportunities for youth and to reflect the city of Brantford's commitment to being a place where youth can thrive. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims Friday, May 1st, 2026 to Thursday, May 7th, 2026 as Youth Week in the City of Brantford.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Caputo, if you could read the 8.7.
Youth Sport Appreciation Week, April 13th to the 20th, 2026. Whereas the Brantford Sports Council is a collaboration of sports organizations and community partners that promotes the ongoing development and education of the benefit of youth sports across all sectors. And whereas the Brantford Sports Council is a community partnership dedicated to the betterment of sport and support for organizations that provide quality sport experiences to the children of Brantford and area. And whereas thousands of children are registered annually in a variety of youth sport programs in the city of Brantford each year, and whereas the youth sport organizations are supported by community residents who volunteer countless hours of their time in support to youth sport in our city, and whereas the community partners and stakeholders support the development of youth sport at the grassroots level, and whereas the Brantford Sports Council is enthusiastically celebrating youth sport in our community in a safe manner. and whereas and engaging the athletes, coaches, families, and community stakeholders with a variety of virtual opportunities to share their sports story. And whereas the recognition of this week, a limited number of members from sports community will join Mayor Kevin Davis at Harmony Square on Friday, April 17th at 12 p.m. as he raises the flag to promote Youth Sport Week in Brantford and to acknowledge and honor the many volunteers and community stakeholders that support the grassroots development of youth sport and promote Brantford as a great place to live, work, play, and learn. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims the weekend of month, April 13th, 2026, as Youth Sport Appreciation Week in the City of Brantford.
Thank you, Councilor Caputo. Councilor Martin, if you would read our last proclamation, 8.8.
Yes, the Sports Award and Recognition Celebration. Whereas the Brantford Sports Council celebrates annually all the accomplishments and achievements of all those that make a difference in youth sports in our community. And whereas Brantford Sports Council is a collaboration of sports organizations and community partners that promotes the ongoing development and education of the benefit of youth sports across all sectors. And whereas the Brantford Sports Council is a community partnership dedicated to the betterment of sport and support for organizations that provide quality sport experiences to the children of Brantford and area. And whereas thousands of children are registered annually in a variety of youth sport programming in the city of Brantford each year. And whereas the youth sport organizations are supported by the community residents who volunteer countless hours of their time in support of youth sport in our city. And whereas community partners and stakeholders support the development of youth sport at the grassroots level, and whereas the awards recognize the dedication of all that enrich the sporting culture in Brantford, and that sport is a catalyst that brings the community together. And whereas in celebration of the annual awards, we acknowledge and honor the many volunteers and community stakeholders that support the grassroots development of youth sport and promote Brantford as a great place to live, work, play, learn, and grow. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford hereby proclaims the 20th Annual Sports Award Recognition Celebration on Saturday, April 18th, 2006.
26. So with that, I'll call the vote on that, please.
The approval of all proclamations carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 10-0. Members of council vote in favor. Councilors Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, McCurry, Martin, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
Right, we'll move into delegations. We have 2 registered delegations for this evening. Prior to hearing from the delegations, I'll remind those in the meeting that we do have some rules that apply as set forth in the city's procedural bylaw. And they are as follows. No person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting other than materials that in the opinion of the chair are legitimate audiovisual aids. 2, all persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language that is disrespectful or make any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject that's in debate and shall not speak on any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in a conversation behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. So with that, I'll call up the first of our 2 delegates. The first is Andrew Davis, who would like to speak to us about the Power Line Road Transportation Capacity Environmental Assessment. Mr. Davis, please come forward. Yeah, push the button.
Sorry, I tried not to crush the chair there.
Yeah, just indicate you do have 10 minutes to present, inclusive of questions.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Council, and staff. My name is Andrew Davis. I am a resident of Ward 3 residing on Briar Park Road. I've reviewed your current proposal for Powerline Road expansion, and I'd like to bring forward one primary discussion point along with a suggested modification. Briefly, for context, I am employed as a ready mix driver here within the city. I have 15 years of transportation experience, including heavy haul and long distance driving across North America. I spend a majority of my days on roads of all designs, and I have delivered some of the concrete for our infrastructure which we rely upon. I also commute daily along Powerline Road from Park Road North to Sharp Road, so I do experience its congestion firsthand. I want to begin this evening by acknowledging the addition of the dedicated left-hand turn lanes proposed at the intersection of Park Road North and Powerline. I believe this addition will significantly reduce peak hour congestions, particularly the backups towards Wayne Gretzky Parkway and Memorial Drive. This is a practical, positive, and long-awaited improvement to which I fully support. My discussion point tonight is with the proposed continuous raised center median design. What sets Powerline Road apart from roads such as Veterans Memorial Parkway, Shellards Lane, and Conklin Road, which the current design appears to be based on, is simple. People live on this. The current roads, as mentioned, do not have direct residential access, whereas Powerline Road does. In Ward 3 alone, there are approximately 20 homes, 2 neighborhood entrances, a retirement complex, and 7 connecting streets that all rely on the direct access to this corridor. A continuous raised median may restrict how residents enter and exit their properties, potentially forcing them to travel significant distance out of direction just to make safe and legal turns. This is not just an inconvenience. This impacts daily mobility, especially for residents in the mentioned retirement complexes and those with limited flexibility on how they can navigate the road with the current preferred design. This isn't just a through road, this is a residential corridor. As an alternative, I ask that council and staff explore the feasibility of a 4-lane road with a center 2-way left turn lane in place of the center raised median. A center 2-way left turn lane would still manage traffic flow while allowing more flexible and reasonable access for the residents. This would also support directed left turn lanes into streets such as Memorial Drive, while still maintaining overall road function and flow. We have already set a precedent for this kind of design on similar local arterial roads nearby, including King George Road, West Street, and Linden Road, all operating at comparable speeds. For a project of this scale, I believe it is important that we take a forward-thinking approach from the start. With the new St. Padre Pio Catholic High School under construction and the expected residential growth that it will bring, planning access early on may reduce the need for costly retrofit cycles later. Based on my firsthand experience in transportation and the construction industry, I have seen how repeated cycles of building, removal, disposal, and rebuilding infrastructure can cause unnecessary costs over time. To be clear, I do support the widening of Powerline Road and fully recognize the need to address both the current congestion and its future growth, but I believe it's worth getting this right the first time. I firmly believe in the values of bringing resolutions, not conflicts. So my request tonight I propose is simple. That council and staff consider amending the preferred design to include a 2-way left turn lane as a forward-thinking, balanced alternative with the proposed raised median in the current preferred design to improve residential access while still maintaining traffic flow and potentially reducing long-term costs. I appreciate your time and look forward to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And we may have a couple of questions for, I believe, Councilor McCrory.
Mayor, thank you very much. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you for that thoughtful presentation. Have you given thought as well to intersection controls, and do you think any other intersections would benefit from the introduction of roundabouts?
At this time, through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, at this time, with the current proposed design, unless we are looking at forward-thinking design, Memorial would be the only logical area where a roundabout could feasibly be put in, but all the other 5 roads I don't think would, 4 other roads I don't think would benefit from a roundabout in that area. You have too many roads too close.
And So you've looked at the intersections at, say, Old Farm and at Balmoral, and they're going to be T intersections largely until the time when perhaps a street enters from the north. So the benefit of the turn lane that you're proposing would make egress and access from those side streets much easier, right?
Correct. So if you, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, I do believe so. Something that perhaps may have been an overlook is the idea of what's going to happen if we do need to make changes to these intersections later on. So we have a design right now that is going to be 2 lanes of flowed traffic. And then when we take the center median out, we're going to have construction crews on either side of those roadways, potentially putting us back down to where we are already with single lane intersections. If we put in a center left turn lane, for example, then we have the ability to move all the traffic away from these 2 flowed traffic lanes into the center lane and force traffic to follow the ways into future development right the first time without having to make major adjustment changes. I believe repainting will cost a lot less than having to tear up the road.
We have found repainting to be very expensive, as Councillor Martin and I can attest to. Would you see that with continuous center turn lane, would you see that there might not be a need to have more than just 1 lane in each direction?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, I could still see that with the potential growth of the St. Padre PO school, along with its expected explosion in that area. And just currently with the current traffic that's already going there, I think it is something that we are going to have to eventually upgrade this road to a 4-lane road. And I'm sure anybody that's driven up and down Powerline Road at 4 p.m. in the afternoon till 6 p.m. in the afternoon can attest that that is something that is needed and is, unfortunately, welcomed.
And this abuts the Briar Park neighborhood, correct?
My apologies, I didn't.
This impacts on the Briar Park neighborhood where you live?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, it doesn't direct me exactly effectively, like, it does not affect me directly.
Not you personally, but
not
it has an impact on the neighborhood.
Not in my neighborhood directly. The only area where it would directly impact it would be right off Park Road North, where it does come to my lane, which that I could easily speak to about the center median there, but that would be for another delegation, I believe.
That allows me now to segue into your new assignment as are you called the president or the chairman of the Briar Park Neighborhood Association?
At this time, I'm the chair.
And would you like to give a plug for that in terms of how to get in touch with you so neighbors can hook up?
For sure. You can more than contact me on Facebook on that one. You can also join our Facebook group in regards to the Briar Park Neighborhood Association.
And thank you for your presentation again.
Thank you.
Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Andrew, great having you here tonight. If I'm hearing you correctly, I guess your concern is that you feel that we're going to end up landlocking this particular area to have access out of that neighborhood onto Powerline Road. Am I correct with that thinking?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, I believe so. With the current design that I've seen, without it being fully explained out, the environmental assessment just kind of gives an idea of a continuous lane. I would like to try to coax your minds to think otherwise at the moment, because it would ideally landlock a lot of these residents in this area. I'm not familiar with exactly how many are on your side of the ward as you're coming down Powerline Road, but I believe there's, I think, something like 12 or 13 residents on your area too.
Agreed. I think it's the Wyndham Hills area that would probably have the biggest concern. So I guess my only concern or my only thought process to it is that the fact that a road such as this is going to require a median based on government regulations. So I think that could be a sticking point with your process or what you believe to be the best way in. But we'll leave that up to engineering to put together. But thanks for being here.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
Through Mr. Chair to the councillor, is there anywhere where there would be a precedent based on the current roads that are already designed around it?
You're asking the wrong guy. Sorry, I wish I could answer
No,
that. I'd be more in tune for Jennifer Elliott if she wants to answer that question.
Well, that's sorry, I'm gonna draw the line there. Mr. Davis, you're here to present. You
I
can
do
raise-
apologize.
You can
I
raise
was just-
hypothetical questions, but it's only council members that can put questions to staff when that's appropriate during the agenda. You're not the first person to make a request like that, and generally we try to accommodate it through the flow of the meeting, but staff don't directly respond to questions from members of the public in this part of our meeting.
Understood.
So I
So
want to thank you very much. We've
can I
had 10
finish?
minutes.
Do I still have the floor for a minute?
No, we're going to be on 10 minutes. So I want to thank you very much, Mr. Davis, for coming forward and taking the time to present a well thought out, very concise input in respect to an important issue that we're dealing with tonight. So with that, I'll now call upon our second delegate, which is Anna Olson, who would like to speak regarding the Glenhurst Art Gallery gift of deaccessioned art. And Anna, you have 10 minutes to present inclusive questions as well. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anna Olson. I'm the director at Glenhurst Art Gallery. I'm bringing with me the chair of our permanent collection committee, David Lang. He's also a board member at Glenhurst. I wanted to just speak a little bit to all of you about a process that we undergo every 10 years at Glenhurst, which is an appraisal of our permanent collection. So at Glenhurst, we have just shy of 600 works of art that have been collected over the last 60 years. And those pieces every 10 years are appraised for our insurance values. And as well as part of that process, we also deaccess. So for those of you who perhaps don't know what deaccession is where we review the pieces in the collection one by one. Usually low value items are reviewed and they are systematically removed from the collection. It is a dirty word in the art world. Very few organizations do it because of various reasons. But we underwent a deaccession 10 years ago. We removed 100 pieces from the collection. We were in the Globe and Mail as a result of this decision to do that, but we continue with our decision to proceed with deaccession because we can't collect new art if we don't remove art from the collection. So this year is the year that we will be doing that deaccessioning and as well as the appraisal. So recently I was speaking to Councillor McCreary with regards to on a different matter, and we brought up this activity that's happening at Glenhurst this year. And he mentioned that there was a lack of art in the council chamber, or sorry, at City Hall, on the walls of City Hall. And so we discussed the possibility of perhaps some of the deaccessioned work that the works that are deaccessioned from this particular activity this year that could perhaps become part of the property of the city of Brantford in exchange for assistance with the appraisal process, which usually we actually, at the time that we had the conversation, we did not have a selection made for our appraisal. We have since had awarded the appraisal, the people that have done that are to be doing the appraisal value is $15,500. And so that was, it seemed like a win-win because obviously we have to, as part of the deaccession process, it's a very strict process when you deaccession work. You have to contact the donors or do everything in your power to reach donors to let them know. You can't return the work because they've already received a tax advantage or a tax receipt for that work. And then the idea is that you do everything in your power to keep it within the public realm. So that could be giving it to, public spaces, giving it to other art galleries. And then after you've exhausted those opportunities, then you would sell the work, and then the proceeds from that work go back into the collection, whether it's through reframing or matting or fixing, conservation, etc. So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about this process. And obviously we would love the opportunity to see some of this work remain in the community and grace the walls of City Hall. Thank you.
There are a couple of questions, Anna. First, Councillor McCreary.
Welcome, folks. Thanks for coming tonight. Hopefully you'll be able to clarify some of the questions that councillors had at Committee of the Whole a week or so ago. hopefully counselors will re-ask those questions for you. So you already spoke to obligations to donors. And if I understand correctly, there are none.
The obligation within the deaccession process, it's very clearly set out by the Canada Council for the Arts what the protocols are for deaccessioning. You are to notify first of all, you're to notify the community that this is happening, which we do through newsletters, newspapers, social media, etc. And then again, some of the donors, we have some contact information. Some of these donations were made 60 years ago. So, we do everything in our power to contact people with the information we have. We look them up on Facebook. We look them up on, Google, try and find them. In the last deaccession, I just looked this up actually, in the last deaccession of 100 pieces, we were able to reach about 15, I think it was between 12 and 15 people or families. So it's difficult to do that.
So if a donor voiced an objection, you could deal with that?
It's, of course, that's why people don't like doing this. But we feel at Glenhurst, the deaccessioning is an important part of our business practices. We have a small vault, and it can only accommodate a certain amount. It's very full at the moment. And so without deaccessioning, we are unable to accept new work, which means that new art is not, we just can't accept new art, and we get donations every year.
And with respect to the care and comfort of these works, I will draw your attention to the painting of Joseph Brant above the mayor's head. Would you say that might be the type of media that we could receive as an oil painting?
Our collection is very diverse. Usually the things that get deaccessioned are low value items that have no relevance to the collection's mandate. Every 10 years, we also look at the mandate and decide whether the mandate still applies to our community. So if the mandate changes, sometimes the works that are in the collection may change. But we have many pieces that look just like that. And, would something like that be up for deaccessioning? Again, it's not my decision. We have a committee that makes those decisions, and they're hard decisions in many cases. But the idea is that we preserve the integrity of the collection and make sure that it's relevant to today's world.
We wouldn't be getting a Danby or a Colville or a Hoyle.
No, you would not.
We'd be getting.
No, having said that, in the last deaccession, we deaccessed a piece that was actually quite high value. It was a tough decision to make, but the piece was massive. It was like 14 feet by 7 feet or something like that. And the piece was not exhibitable at Glenhurst. We just physically did not have a space that it could be exhibited in. And so we felt that we made the decision to deaccess the piece for that reason.
And so you would be making the decision about what's deaccessioned, and our staff, our cultural staff, our public art committee, they could weigh in on what we would like to get out of your deaccession and where it could go.
Correct.
Yeah. And what assistance would Glenhurst offer in terms of framing, hanging, displaying?
We have a technician that can assist with that.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to have any of that expertise.
No.
Okay. And have you ever seen the hallway that runs from there to there?
Yes.
Would you say that there's a whiter, longer wall anywhere in the world which is bereft of interest?
I haven't seen one recently.
Okay. And lastly, in terms of it remaining in the public realm, being within a municipally owned facility would be considered the public realm.
The idea of public realm is an arbitrary term. I think the idea of remaining in the public realm, obviously the first preference would be it to remain at a museum or a gallery like ours. But to be clear, the pieces that sit in our vault do not see the public on a regular basis. So the idea that it sits in the city hall where there are employees and people that come and go within the community, I would say that qualifies for the public realm.
And it could be in any city facility so long as there's some degree of security control over folks who might want to do harm.
Once it's in your hands, it is out of our care. It is in your care, and you can move it to wherever you like.
Okay. Thank you very much for your kind offer and your participation in this.
You're very welcome.
Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Would anything that could potentially be coming require special handling or special climate control or that type of thing?
Typically the things that we are de-accessing our, again, lower value pieces that, don't suit don't suit the collection. I mean, we do have pieces that, to be clear, our vault does not meet the national standard for, like if we had a Lauren Harris, we would have serious conversations about the climate control of our vault because it does not meet the national standard. It just simply can't, given it's the building that we're in. But I don't think that there's anything that we would be de-accessioning that would qualify for having a special requirement like that.
Okay. And just secondly and lastly, when you went through this process 10 years ago, where did the pieces you disposed of go?
Many of them ended up in galleries. I think about 20 or 30 of them ended up in galleries within the region. So we didn't go too far out because we have to deliver them and get them, these pieces, to their respective homes. So they were all within kind of driving distance. And then we also sold some of them. They went to an auction. And then we also took some of them and repurposed them into our rental and sales. So they are currently in our rental and sales. So if they were nice and we thought that they would were marketable and sellable, they remained in our within our confines, but not within the permanent collection.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, well, that hits 10 minutes. Thank you very much, Anna, for coming to make a presentation, answer questions regarding this issue. So we'll be dealing with these issues, the environmental assessment power line and also the Glenhurst Art Gallery resolution very shortly. But first we'll deal with communications, and I believe Councillor Sluss, you had the motion to receive the clerk's report and communication. Please read it in your seconder.
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Caputo, that the clerk's report on communications for March be received.
Any discussion? Seeing none, call the vote.
The clerk's report on communication carries unanimously and a recorded vote of 10-0. Members of council voting in favor as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste McCurry, Hunt Van Tilburg, Samuel Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
All right, we'll now move on to approving minutes, and we're going to divide these into two because of the conflict that Councillor Sluss has in regards to the John Noble Home Committee meeting minutes. So first, we'll deal with 11.1, City Council, February 12th. First of all, Councillor Martin, if you move the motion and state your seconder and also read it so we can confirm which ones we're going to be voting on.
Yes, I move, seconded by Councillor McCurry, that the following minutes be adopted. 11.1, City Council, February 24th. 11.2, Special City Council, March 3rd. 11.3, Special City Council, March 10th. 11.4, Special City Council, Private and Confidential, March 10th.
Okay, we'll call the vote on those first four sets of minutes.
The adoption of the city council meeting minutes carries unanimously and recorded vote of 10-0. Members of council vote in favor: Councillor Sullivan, Celeste McCurry, Hunt Van Tilburg, Samuel Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
Okay, and for the second set, I move, seconded by Councillor McCurry, that the following minutes be received. 11.5, John Noble Home Committee of Management, December 17th. 11.6, John Noble Home Committee of Management, Private and Confidential, December 17th. And 11.7, John Noble Home Committee of Management, February 11th.
I'll now call the vote on that set of minutes, noting Councillor Sluss's abstention.
The John Noble Home minutes carries unanimously and recorded vote of 8-0. Members of council voting in favor: Councillors Sullivan, McCurry, Hunt Van Tilburg, Samuel Martin, Caputo, and Mayor Davis.
We'll move on to the committee reports, and I believe Councillor Caputo, if you'd read the motion, place all the separated items on the floor for discussion.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sluss, that all items in the committee reports from 12.1 to 12.5 separated for discussion purposes be approved.
Thank you. So we'll deal first with the two items that we had delegations speaking to. And so the first one we'll deal with is item 12.1.1, the Powerline Road Transportation Capacity Environmental Assessment Preferred Alternative. Any discussion on this item? Councillor McCrary.
Mayor, thank you very much. And the delegate and other folks in the community have raised the same sort of suggestion to us. And through you to staff, I'm just wondering, with respect to the maturation of the process of deciding on a design for this road, is there opportunity yet to look at options for intersection controls and, as was suggested by the delegate tonight, a continuous or intermittent two-way turn lane in place of a curb?
There we go. Good afternoon. Through the chair to you, Councillor McCreary, Jennifer Elliott, Director of Engineering Services. So I wanted to add that the intent of an EA is to look at the wholesome picture of the project area. Look at the environmental impacts, the archaeological, and everything along those lines, and assess the idea of the plan going forward. I greatly appreciate all comments. I greatly appreciate Mr. Davis's comments. We've had some great conversations, but a lot of these requests will be flushed out during the preliminary design and the detailed design. With respect to Powerline Road, it is a major arterial road. So as per the Canadian Geometric Design Guidelines, it is identified with the speeds, it's identified to have a median. If we were to increase, and it is in one of the alternatives in the EA to have that wider cross-section, to have that large median, which in this suggestion could be utilized for the shared left turn lane. That would be greater costs, greater property impacts, greater environmental impacts to the north side of the road, because as we all know that it does need to increase in the direction of the north because of the major hydro towers. I think that answers all of your questions. If I have missed something, please ask again.
I think that answered every question and was very thorough, and thank you for that, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Next, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Through you to staff. Is it with the design that's being proposed, is it possible to make a left-hand turn from roads like Greenfield or Old Farm or Ivanhoe onto Powerline?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Martin. Yes, we would be allowing coming out from Greenfield, Old Farm Road, Memorial Drive. You would have left turn and right turn capabilities from that intersection. Plus, along Powerline, you would have left turn lane access into those roadways as well. It would be based on volumes and everything that's kind of coming in. So as well as Noble Court. There's the retirement home as well, closer to King George Road. So those would be looked at for having that left turn access in.
So if you have a left turn access in those locations, why not have a left turn lane the full length?
So then to have, through the chair to you, Councillor Martin, it is a great question, but in order to have it the full length, then we would be grabbing more property towards the north to have that full length. But also, like as per the Canadian Design Guidelines, the TAC guidelines, with that speed of traffic, you don't have that buffer area of that median. As well, like I can draw your attention to King George Road, while that is all commercial, like mostly commercial, really no residential. That right of way is operating at a very low level of service because of all of those driveways and intersections going into them. So as we know more and we plan better for major arterial roads, we should really be limiting those accesses in, because you're creating accident points and lower level of service.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Hart.
Thank you, and through you to staff. The proposed design only allows it for widening of 4 lanes. And correct me if I'm wrong, it was to Powerline and or Wayne Gretzky Parkway. And there was some discussion about the requirement for 4 lanes from that point, and I'll let you tell me which one it is, to the eastern boundary. And so if you can speak to that, I guess my question would be, is there a reason that the EA could not include what a 4-lane section is from either Powerline or Gretzky to the eastern boundary?
Through the chair to you, Councillor Hunt. So yes, the EA has identified, with looking at the projected traffic volumes from Gretzky Parkway towards the easterly city limits. Currently, it's identified to be built as a 2 to 3 lane roadway, just because of the volumes that are being projected. We would be taking the appropriate property for the ultimate of a 4-lane cross-section through there. So we would, through the property acquisition process, be retaining all of the property that would be required for that future build out, as well as, you know, every 5 years we do our transportation master plan. So we will be looking at those volumes and monitoring them as they're going along. And that if it comes like sooner in the process that the traffic volumes are being shown as requiring that 4-lane cross section, then we would implement that.
Okay, so from what I'm understanding then, that the preferred alternative right now is to remain a 2-lane from Gretzky Parkway to the eastern boundary. But during the environmental assessment process, that decision could change, and we would have the property at that point to make it 4 lanes, should it be deemed necessary.
Correct. As the years go on and as the development is coming and we're seeing those traffic patterns, if they are all coming to Powerline Road, then we would implement that project to widen to 4.
Okay, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Right, call the vote.
Item 12.11 carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 10-0. Members of council voted in favor. Councilors Sullivan, Celeste McCreary, Hans Van Tilburg, Samuel, Martin Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
With that, we'll move on to the next resolution, which I believe is item 12.3.14, the Glenhurst Art Gallery gift of deaccessioned art. And floor is open for discussion. Councilor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you very much. Thank you to the folks from Glenhurst who came today to offer some clarity for what turned out was not a very well written resolution, because it endured quite a number of questions at Committee of the Whole. And I thank them for helping us clarify in our minds how to go forward with this. I would ask that the clerk, if the clerk could give some thought to instructing the committee on how to undo the referral before we go to the vote, so that we can proceed with this tonight. So what I would like to say is I hope that everybody has had their concerns and questions satisfied. There weren't too many of them that came from committee tonight. I think what we've proven is that there's no downside to the municipality to do this. We're going to be contributing, if my math is good, about $7,500 to pay for half of the cost of the deaccessioning consultant. The artwork that we get will be usable in the format that it arrives. It will not require conservation or protection or climate control. Some of it will approximate what we're seeing above the mayor's head and what we see in the Charlie Ward Room, which are nicely done works of art in various media. The artworks will be framed. They'll be hung with the assistance of Glenhurst professional staff. We can choose via our staff where we'll display these pieces of art. They certainly, as I referenced earlier, they certainly could go on the longest and most boring hallway possibly on the planet, or they can be parceled out into some of our other buildings to provide a little bit of joy and fun and cultural awareness to folks that live in the city of Brantford. It'd be a shame to see these things leave our community since they were donated presumably with the express wish of having them on display in the city of Brantford. So I would really appreciate everybody's support on this tonight. It'd be nice if this is unanimous to show support for the initiative and to show support for the folks from Glenhurst who took time out of their lives tonight to come and help clarify the questions and concerns that councilors rightfully had at Committee of the Whole. And I hope for a favorable outcome. Thank you.
Councillor Sloss.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, I don't know, I can't go back to the presenter, I guess, but I just want, my understanding is we could take out of what's being decommissioned what we chose. We don't take the entirety of what's being decommissioned. I don't know how to get clarity on that, Mr. Mayor. Our staff would be picking out what would be coming to the city? Or would they be told to just back a truck and take it all?
Well, let me tell you, as the chairperson, I'm reading the resolution. I think some concern expressed about how the wording was prepared, because what this resolution says, it says expect between 60 and 100 pieces of art may be deaccessioned, and that it indicates that the city will receive the gift of that deaccessioned artwork. Doesn't say staff go and pick and choose.
So I take from that, we take it all.
That's the way I would read the resolution as the chair.
Perhaps the mover would like to amend that to something more palatable. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, so I see other speakers, Councillor Hunt, then Councillor Ventiller.
I thank you, and through you to staff. So this resolution, when it came through Committee of the Whole, was referred to staff for further research and consultation, including an assessment of the cost and the merit, and then report back in June of 2026. So I see Joe back there. I guess my question is that fair of your department to be able to assess the cost and the merit of the pieces that we would be receiving?
Through the mayor, Councillor Hunt, Joe Muto, Director of Economic Development. I think that is fair, and it is on our work plan to provide a report back to council in the June cycle of this year.
So from your perspective, there would be no challenges to the referral, because you would be looking at the art that we are getting, and as been referred to, the potential of the 60 to 100 pieces. So there's no real reason for the referral to be removed.
Through the mayor to councillor, I don't believe so.
Thanks, Joe.
Councillor Ventiller.
Well, just hearing that staff answer still seems to twist the words around. I'm from what I'm reading, and what I have that's clear now today that I didn't have a week ago is exactly what Glenhurst is doing, and that's commendable and understandable. So we know what it is, but what we really don't know is what we're doing on our end and what due diligence we're putting into that, and the very fact that we're asking these type of questions is what we need to get that clarity on how we behave on our side, what we're looking at. I would love to see staff go do their due diligence, look over the collection, look over the numbers that would be applicable to which buildings and where, maybe even have a list of the pictures or something that they can show us that is in the collection so that we know what we're getting. It feels a little bit like a blind requisition. So I'm fully in support of the resolution as it's written, that it be referred to staff, that there is some research and consultation, that they come back, they show us the full merits of this. I believe that was the missing element of 2 weeks ago, which was the work we do on our side. So what I'm suggesting is that we stick with what is the resolution as written and support it and see what comes back to us in a report. And I think we'll be pretty pleased by that outcome.
Next, speaking, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. I'd actually like to bring forth an amendment that staff be directed.
Well, first, let's see if everybody that wants to speak to it has spoken to it. Anybody else want to speak to it? No, I'll speak to it. And I'll say this, I said it last time, there's no limit to the requests that can be made of municipal government. I say that the requests are infiniteless. However, we have limited resources to address the needs of our community, and I suggest that it's incumbent upon us, being responsible to the taxpayer, that we're not an art gallery, we're not an art museum, we're not in the business of managing art, and it's really not something that a city should concern itself with. Yes, we can help fund art museums, and yes, we provide the land that Glenhurst sits on, and we provide all the landscape, and we provide a great deal of support to Glenhurst. But we heard the expression, this deaccessioning is the dirty little business of the art world. And I know from prior experience, it is. I see this as an attempt to offload onto the city this dirty little business of the art world. And believe me, it's tough when you're trying to dispose of deaccessioned art. Like, for example, now we're taking it on, and then what happens if it does what it likely will do? We have lots of art that sits in inventory here. We're just simply adding to this art. To me, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know why we're doing this. I don't even know why we'd consider doing this. I don't even know why we're doing this through a motion brought by a councillor after he speaks to the executive director of the Glenhurst Art Gallery. Wouldn't this normally come through staff? I mean, I'm not going to say that this is grandstanding, but it looks to me like a grandstanding type resolution. And so
Mayor,
I'm not going to.
I really take objection to your remarks, accusing me of grandstanding and accusing these good people of offloading dirty business. That's highly uncalled for, and I think you ought to retract it and apologize. Unlike the fake apology that I gave you 2 weeks ago, this one has merit, Mayor, and I don't think you should have said that stuff, and I think you ought to apologize to them and to me.
I'm not going to do that. And I'll ask the committee if it wants to rule on that. And I'll say why, because I was simply using the words that were given to us during the presentation that we heard tonight. And I didn't say you were grandstanding. I said this is a grandstanding resolution. So as a reference to the resolution itself, and there'll be no back and forth. So I'm ruling that I'm not accepting your point of privilege or order. Did you want to appeal it?
I won't waste my time further on your misjudgment of words, Mayor.
All right, thank you. So,
No. I challenge the chair on that ruling.
okay,
I don't agree with you at all. I believe when you go and state that a resolution that was brought forth by a councillor, which councillors are allowed to do on behalf of the constituents that they talk to, that the resolutions that they bring forward are not grandstanding. I believe that's just an order of business that is regular. We have multiple resolutions before council. It would be shameful for me to say it's grandstanding. The other part is that maybe the words were used, but the context felt that there was a feeling of insult there in the way it was directed. And so I don't agree. I would like to see the mayor apologize, and we'll see a vote on that to challenge the chair.
well, Councillor Van Tilburg, I often find you very convincing, and I will accept that I should apologize unconditionally to Councillor McCreary, that I should not have used the word grandstanding. So I will not give an conditional apology. I'll give an unconditional apology. So far as in reference to the delegation, and I stand by the words that I used because they were simply the words that were given to us by the delegate. And it is recognized in the art world. This is a dirty business, deaccessioning. It's dirty not in the sense that it's corrupt, but it's dirty in the sense it's tough, dirty work, trying to deaccess art. And that was the intent to which it was meant. So,
Mayor, I'll again raise a point that it wasn't the words dirty business which you referenced. It was the fact that you said that these good people were offloading something to us. That is unacceptable. That was the basis of my request for you to apologize to these folks. They're offloading nothing.
Yeah.
And I suggest you do that.
As I will stand by that comment, that I believe that's exactly what this is doing. So Councillor Van Tilburg, if you want to challenge the ruling.
I believe you've defended yourself and did give forth the apology and the explanations, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
People can vote as needed.
All right. So does anybody else want to speak to the resolution before we take amendments? Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First and foremost, this resolution was brought forth by a councillor, and he has every opportunity and ability to do so. We decided as a group to have this referred to staff, where it should have gone from the beginning, to have staff give us a recommendation as to how we're supposed to proceed. And now we're turning this into a kangaroo court. And we're not done with this. I don't think we're gonna be done with this evening with this kind of actions. So I will support it going to staff where it should have gone when this was brought forward.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You talk about using the words that the delegation used, but words can change their meaning in context. So I agree with the other councillors that questioned your use of the words and the tone and context in which you use them. But other than that, it's nice to hear you criticize art in such a way that you should be in favor of canceling the public art grants that we give out. That's a waste of taxpayers' money for sometimes stuff that Glenhurst would look at and say, we're not taking that crap. So to your rant against the arts, I hope to see something come forward soon saying that we will stop funding public art in our community.
Councillor Scully.
Thank you. I'm going to continue to support the referral back to staff. It's unfortunate that we have Glenhurst sort of caught in the middle of this, because there is merit perhaps to us looking at this art. We don't know because we don't have the details. Unfortunately, when a resolution comes to us or before us in this manner as a councillor-driven resolution, we're left without the opportunity to ask questions of staff. And I think what we're seeing here is that we still have a lot of questions. We still have a lot of questions about what is going to be categorized in this, the deaccessioning of this art. What's going to be in there? Do we want it? Do we have space for it? We're left with still so many questions. And for that reason, I'm going to continue to support the referral of this back to staff so they can have an opportunity to look at exactly what it is that we could be taking on, and whether or not we want it, whether or not we have space for it, whether or not there's a better space for it somewhere else in our community. These are questions that we have, and we have every right to have, and a responsible council would want to read a report on what we're doing with taxpayer dollars. I don't understand why this has become so contentious. So I'm going to continue to support this referral so we can just gather more information. Thank you.
Right, I think everybody's had a chance to speak first round. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to bring forth an amendment. I'm hoping it's actually would be considered friendly. The amendment would be that staff prepare a report based at the conclusion of the deconcession report on what we would take.
All right, so the seconder for that? Yeah. Councillor Sluss. So just to make sure I understand what it is. So staff shall prepare a report.
It replaces the referral.
Okay. Okay. Any debate on the amendment? Councillor Curry.
I believe that the councillor's amendment will solve the angst that some feel. It allows Glenhurst to have the certainty that we are supporting. I was waiting until I had your attention, Mayor. it will allow staff to produce, I think, what everybody's asking for, which is a body of work that would say, yeah, we'd like this one and this one and this one, perhaps not that one, and we can put them here, here, and here. It also, by not kicking this down the road to June, it allows this to happen upon the deaccession, and which may be the same time frame, but at least then these folks have the certainty that we're willing to proceed in terms of acquisition, and they can make their plans at that point in time of which they may wish to sell, auction, or provide to other facilities in our region. So I would hope everybody would recognize that this is perhaps a middle ground, and it gets what the majority of councillors are looking for, and it allows us to proceed with this in a timely fashion. Thank you.
All right, so are you, Councillor Sullivan, are you taking the position that this amendment means this is not going to be deferred? That we proceed with this subject to the report?
Subject to the report, that's correct. So basically, nothing's happening at this particular moment until we get a report back from staff on what we're doing.
All right, which would come to us in the next cycle.
Yes.
And then we'd have to make a decision on whether we continue to defer it further or whether we make a decision at that time.
Correct.
Okay, so any further discussion on the amendment? Councillor Hunt, then Councillor Sikoli.
I'm just looking for clarification on the amendment. So is this, so right now, the first sentence is the following item be referred to staff for further research and consultation, including an assessment of the costs and the merit, and report back in the June 26 cycle. So is this amendment that staff be directed to include in the report back recommendations on the artwork to receive? So is this adding to the report that's coming back from staff? And or are we changing the June 26th date?
Yeah, I think you raised a good point. I think the way it's worded, it's really adding an element to the deferral so that when it comes back to us, it will also include information as to, you know, what works steply we should take back. That's how I'd interpret it.
Okay, and I could be supportive of that, but I think what we need to clarify then is that
Yeah, I'll ask the
that
clerk, could you
that
please?
actually be added to the first.
Yeah, I think we need, Mr. Clerk, could you please confirm how you interpret this, how staff will interpret this?
Yeah, through the chair. So based on the conversations that we're having tonight, I believe what the counselor is looking for, it's still a referral for one meeting cycle, but the referral is to provide direction to staff to provide within the report that they'll be coming back next month with recommendations on what pieces of art to receive.
Okay. I'm not going to agree with the clerk. I'm going to make a ruling that, I mean, the resolution that came to us from the committee was that it be referred into the June cycle. I read this amendment to read, not that it's going to come back in May, but it'll come back to us in June, just it'll have this additional feature, an additional report. That's how I read it. That's how I'm going to interpret it. Any discussion? Councillor Sluss.
Maybe I'm hearing things. I thought I heard that the resolution was saying that they will go through with their decommissioning in conjunction with our staff. Staff will come back with a report saying what we would take and where it would go. That's what I heard. Can somebody confirm that?
No, that's wrong. If you read the resolution.
I don't have the.
Okay, well, I'm reading it as it, I'm reading from the minutes, the
I thought
report.
this was a resolution by substitution.
Okay. Well, that wasn't.
I heard
what it
that as
said.
well.
That's not how it was presented. It was presented as an amendment to the resolution as it's worded. I've ruled, and someone can oppose that, but if the resolution that came to us from the committee said referral at the very beginning, right?
Yes.
And so I did not hear substituted. I heard that this is amended to include a request that staff prepare a report on the art that we might be interested in accepting. That's how I read this.
Point of clarification. I had mentioned that it would be a replacement of the referral.
Well, because you didn't do it in writing, I listened to what you heard. I've made a ruling on it. That's how I interpret and what I believe is on the floor.
I think, Mr. Mayor, we've made something very simple, very difficult. Perhaps to get rid of all the mud, we should vote on what's on the floor. If you're in agreement with what Councillor Sullivan moved, you vote down what was recommended by committee. He reintroduces whatever he's going to reintroduce, and we vote on that. That's what I would suggest. Mr. Mayor.
Well, it's either that or I allow him to, the mover and seconder want to amend the amendment or further clarify it. And so long as the committee doesn't object, but I think I tend to agree with you. The cleaner way to do this is the resolution on the floor is referral to Jim. If this amendment is, let's bring it back next month with a report, then I agree with you. We should defeat the referral, and then they can put back on the floor in a different resolution.
In a clear way.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
agree.
So I can ask the mover and seconder, are you okay with it, or do you want me to put to a vote the resolution, the amended resolutions as I've interpreted it to be?
I'm okay with cleaning it up.
So first of all, I have to clarify with the mover what you want. So you want your amendment to be modified by consent, and the modification is that your amendment is be substituted, right? So meaning we'd have a report back next month listing the art that we would be accepting, but also we'd be proceeding with the body of the resolution, which includes the gifting of money. Correct? Okay. Now, does everybody understand that?
That's
On the amendment. So I'm going to move to Councillor Scully and then Councillor Caputo.
okay. I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So I will just clarify for us over here, we are replacing the referral with this. So that's what's on the floor right now.
Yeah, so if you have the resolution from the committee, you're striking that first paragraph, the following be referred. And it kind of begins with whereas the Glenhurst Art Gallery, but it's just we're deferring a decision until next month with the requested report.
Yeah, understood. I'm still not gonna support this because this gives certainty to us taking this art. And I'm still not convinced that we want to be in the business of buying art. I'm not convinced that we want to. I still need more information, and I'm not convinced that it's the best use of staff time to sit there and rifle through 100 pieces of art to decide which hallway it's going to go into. So I still think I would like to see staff go through this and take their time and do it, not be rushed in the next 30 days to go through all this art and decide which bathroom we're going to hang a piece of art in City Hall. So yeah, I'm going to not support this amendment and continue with the referral.
Councillor Caputo.
Yeah, so I'm still, this is, it's clear as mud to me. Originally, the resolution was to bring it back to staff, so staff would bring back a report for us to consider. If the report comes back that they don't believe that this should be considered, why are we having them pick out art that is going to stay or even consider that? Wouldn't that be something that we'd bring up at the next Cal meeting that would be planning and admin when this report comes back to us? So I guess I'm not supporting the amendment. I want it to go back to staff the way it was originally done.
Councillor Vancouver.
I won't.
To the amendment.
Pardon me? To the amendment, yes. I won't be supporting the amendment. The amendment basically, if it's approved, it rubber stamps what we're doing and that we are accumulating an unknown quantity of artwork in 1 month. Again, blind. And as I said, I also don't agree with the council priorities reserve funding as the source. We could probably find a different funding model. I do believe in the intent of it though. And I am more than willing to have an amendment that would amend the previous, the standing resolution that would move it saying, instead of report back in June, no late, to have it changed to no later than June, if there are some timeline requirements that might need to be made, and we can make them quicker. But we certainly have to get the feedback to all the counselors before we take on this endeavor. So I won't be supporting the amendment as it's written.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote then, the amendment.
Mr. Mayor, before we vote, can I see it in writing? Because I don't even know what we're voting on now.
Well, the problem is that we didn't have it in writing, but what I'm interpreting it.
Withdraw the amendment.
Okay, so the amendment's withdrawn. Is that seconder agree with that? Yeah, okay. So that's withdrawn before the vote. So we have before us the original resolution with the referral in it, so it comes back to us in the June
We can
2026.
separate the referral clause from the main motion as presented originally.
Yes, we certainly can do that. Any further debate before I call the separated vote? So first of all, I'll call the vote on the referral, because if that passes, then I don't see how we then vote. If the referral passes, then I think it passes as a package. If the referral motion is defeated, then I suggest we go on to deal with the balance. I think that's logically how we deal with it.
Requested a separated vote. That's the right of the body.
And that's what we'll do. So first of all, we're going to vote on the paragraph that says the following item be referred to staff for further research and consultation, including assessment of the cost and merit, and report back in the June 2020 cycle. So that's what we're voting on right now. It's referral to the June 2026 cycle.
The referral carries on a recorded vote of 8-1. Members of council voting in favor, Councillors Sullivan, Slats, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis. Members opposed, Councillor McCreary.
So we have the request for a separated vote on the balance of the resolution. I would suggest it makes sense we vote yes to that, because otherwise, what are you referring to staff? So call the vote on that.
The remainder of the resolution carries on a recorded vote of 9-0. Members of council voting in favor, Councillor Sullivan, Celeste McCurry, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item. Councillor McCurry, that's 12.3.2, the municipal election compliance audit. You asked for that to be separated.
I did indeed. Now, this is giving delegated authority to staff to look after that item through you, Mayor, to staff. Would city staff then be receiving the applications and making the appointments to that committee?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, and with respect to the obligation of that committee, are they required to report to the city of Brantford and the other partner municipalities on an annual basis?
Through the chair, they're a quasi judicial body, which means they're independent from the municipality. We do have a joint committee with the county of Brant, Haldimand, and Norfolk.
No, there's an outstanding issue that related to Mr. Robel, and Mr. Robel has been kept waiting for quite some time for there to be judgment passed on what would turn out to be his ability to run in the next election. I think it's becoming to the point where it's perhaps a bit unfair to that gentleman to be kept waiting. Do we have any sort of intimation of when that body of work might be concluded by the committee or by their appointed body, Mr. Clerk?
Through the chair, is this a question about the delegating of authority to the clerk to appoint members of the committee, or an ongoing?
Ongoing.
All those decisions are posted publicly on the city's website.
Okay, so there's we have no idea what the process is. The time frame, do we?
I could tell you the clerk's role. The clerk's role is to prepare the agendas, facilitate the meetings, and provide procedural advice to members of the committee. Once our portion is complete, we have no involvement in the remainder of the process. So I can't answer those
Yeah,
questions.
that's the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Saying none, call the vote.
Item 3.2 carries unanimously on a recorded vote.
I
9
vote
to
yes.
0. 10 to 0, and recorded vote 10 to 0. Members of council vote in favor: Mayor Davis, Councillor Sakoli, Sullivan, Caputo, Celeste, Marn, McCreary, Hunt, Samuel, and Van Tilburg.
You can register me as a yes for that one.
All right, we'll move to the fourth item that was separated. It's 12.4.5, the honorary and expense report. Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you. And through you to staff. Not a question to begin with, but in terms of attending conferences and conventions, the city of Brantford reimburses members for per diem so they can eat through the day. We pay for the registration to conferences. We pay for hotel if it's more than one day and it's not drivable, and we pay for transportation. I presume that's still the case. That's been our history. And I'm wondering how then we end up with 3 members of this council going to the same convention. And I'm citing specifically the AMO convention in August of last year. Mayor Davis, his expense was $2,514. Councillor Samuel's expense was $2,567. Councillor Sakoli's expense was $3,777, of which we learned today that 766 had been inappropriately attributed to the councillor. And I'm just wondering how it is that for 3 people going to the same convention, we end up with 3 different claims, and one of those is quite significantly more. Does staff have an explanation for that?
Through the chair, it's largely related to meals. So per diem is an option, but per diem isn't always the method in which staff or members of council are compensated for their meals expenses. There is always an option to save the receipts and submit the receipts, and others do claim a per diem. So there is different methods in which those costs can be incurred.
So is it safe to assume then the cost of registration and the cost of hotel would have been the same for all folks? Is it city staff member that makes those arrangements on behalf of members of council?
I believe in most cases it is, yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item concerns the expenditure of a not inconsiderable sum on a security system to go into a council member's residence. Now, through you to staff, Mayor, how my understanding is there was a report quite some time ago that spoke to a future consideration for security concerns related to the safety of members of council, some of whom have been threatened numerous times, that being the reason why some folks didn't run for re-election. I myself was threatened considerably during years past. So were all councillors, was there come a point in time when there was going to be an action by staff to create a report about the need for audits of councillors' residences for security purposes?
Through the chair, I can't speak to that report.
And councillors, I believe, and I'm sorry, I should have researched this today, but I think we're each allocated a budget of about $3,000 a year. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, each councillor is provided a discretionary budget annually of $3,510.
And that doesn't include the attendance at conventions and conferences, right?
Yes, it does.
It does, okay. And in this circumstance where you have that expenditure, from what fund would that have been drawn in as much as it exceeded the council or budget?
Through the chair, are we speaking to the security?
Yes. Yeah.
That direction came out of a 2023 report, and it was funded from the council priorities reserve.
Okay, so at the time, council voted to allow that from the council priorities reserve.
That's correct.
Okay, so in terms of the money and the authorization, it was completely kosher, as you've said, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions on that one.
All right, not seeing any other questions, so I'll call the vote.
Item 12.4.5 carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillor Sullivan, Celeste McCreary, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
Okay. So I'll move on to, that deals with all the items that are separated. We have no urgent reports. And we do have one resolution coming out of the special in-camera city council that was held earlier this month on March 13th. Councillor Hunt, if you please read the motion, state your seconder.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Samwell, that the purchase of 305 Power Line Road be approved and that the cost of the acquisition and related closing costs be funded from RF 0406 Development Charges Transportation, and that the Director of Economic Development, Tourism and Cultural Initiatives or delegate be directed to sign all necessary or appropriate documents satisfactory to form in the city solicitor to facilitate the purchase, and that the bylaw to authorize the purchase of 305 Power Line Road be presented to council for adoption, and that following the closing and the seller exiting the property, that staff be directed to demolish the structure on the property.
Any discussion? Councillor Samuel.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question for staff. How soon will we be doing something with that property? Will it be several years out before we would be doing anything at that property?
Did you know that it was a form of freedom?
No, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Libertarian.
Let's continue. We're getting an answer. Didn't think that was the answer.
Question one.
When will the extension of the property for Gretzky Parkway extension?
Thank you. Through the mayor to you, Councillor Hunt, my apologies. I missed the question, but I think the question was the timeline on the extension or the project for the extension of the Wayne Gretzky Parkway?
Yeah, the
Councillor
question was
Selmo.
basically, how soon will it be still several years out before we would be doing anything with that property?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Through the mayor to you, Councillor Samwell. So the Wayne Gretzky Parkway Extension Project, we have gone through and filed our notice of completion. So we will be moving into the preliminary and detailed design. So as we move into that, then we're going to move into construction. You're probably gauging about a 2-year time frame in which you'll see shovels in the ground.
So with the answer to that question, Mr. Mayor, when appropriate, I have an amendment I'd like to make.
Any other discussion? Seeing none. Councillor McCreary.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to staff. This looks to be a fairly serviceable structure. Would you agree?
Through the chair to you, Councillor McCreary. So this property, I believe, is partially serviced. There may be water and no sanitary. That I could look into that for you.
Sorry, that wasn't the reference I was making with serviceable. What I meant to say, my apologies, was that it's habitable. It's probably built in about 1960, I would guess, and had been lived in up until recently.
That is correct, Councillor McCreary. It is habitable, but with the proposed construction, that property would be inaccessible.
And I'm wondering if, considering the urgent need that we have for housing in this community, I wonder if there might be opportunity for us perhaps to offer that house to some lucky soul who would be prepared to pick it up and move it to a lot of their choosing at their expense. I wonder if that's a consideration that we might explore.
1 second.
Through the mayor to Councilor McCreary, I think that is something we can definitely explore by amending that last clause of, with respect to demolition on the resolution in front of council this evening, with the direction to, or for staff to investigate other alternatives for the use of that property in the interim before, until such time as construction is slated to start.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So with that in mind, if you'd come back to me when everybody's had a chance.
Anybody else want to speak before we take an amendment? No? Councillor McCreary. McCreary can bring forward your amendment.
I will, and I guess.
Councillor Samwell, Councillor Samwell, did you want to bring forward your amendment?
Yeah.
First, yes.
I have a feeling we might be in heated agreement, but my amendment would be as follows, seconded by Councillor Van Tilborg, that staff be directed, that the direction for staff to demolish the structure on the property following closing be deferred, and that staff be directed to explore and implement interim use options for the property, including rental tenancy, until such time as the land is required for the intended municipal purpose, and that any revenue generated from the interim use be allocated towards the future project associated with the property.
Councillor Martin, did you see your hand up on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be supporting this. It just opens up another can of worms like we ran into with Park Road South and Glendale properties there where people are were given temporary leases and they've turned them into permanent leases until they move out. So this is just a can of worms that I don't think we want to open.
Councillor Van Tilburg?
Yeah, and I supported the resolution because it gives all options for staff to consider. And that is use of the property. We do have a very serious shelter crisis happening right now and people that require rentals. And if there was a way, that's fine. But it also, what it does is it says to hold off on the demolition. And that also falls in what another councillor has proposed. And so I don't think that we're on too much of the wrong path, that we're looking at housing issues and either saving the housing or looking for people and places for those to go for housing, until at which time that house either needs to be removed or demolished. And that can make a difference in someone's life one way or the other. So that's why I'm supporting the resolution.
Councillor Scully?
I absolutely cannot support this, this amendment. This council has demonstrated an inability to remove people from their housing once they're in. As we saw, Councillor Martin mentioned, you know, we owned all these houses for the purpose of demolishing them, or then we were going to sell them, and we've demonstrated that we don't like to do that. So why we would put ourselves in that position again is beyond me, and it just seems like an issue for down the road, trying to do something maybe politically sexy today and creating an issue down the road. Not to mention the fact that we've passed motions recently to discourage vacant housing. So I don't know why we would want to keep this up and vacant, and perhaps an opportunity for people to encroach on it and set up shop there. I think the neighborhood would not appreciate it. I don't see any value in us keeping this property as a rental property. The city of Brantford is not in the market for rental properties that are market value. We shouldn't be dipping our toes in that market. I don't understand why we would want to do this for such a short duration of time and create more challenges for ourselves down the road. So not going to be supporting this.
Yeah, I won't support it either for the very same reasons. And I think, didn't we hear from a delegation this evening, Mr. Davis talking about the issues on Powerline Road? And potentially this would be a hindrance to that particular development. But I think frankly, I'd rather that we would have seen a resolution or amendment, I think that Councilor McCurry had in mind, which would be not that the house on the lot be considered for rental, but that the property the building, instead of being demolished, might consider someone wanting to take that building and remove it from the property. So I'm not going to vote for the amendment as it reads now. So, Councilor McCurry.
I'll turn the microphone on first. Thank you very much for that. And I think in future, I'm going to get Councillor Samuel to write my resolutions for me, because as it turns out, hers are politically something or other. What was the phrase used? Politically sexy, whereas mine are grandstanding. And I think perhaps Councillor Samuel, if I could engage you to assist me in future, I think I'd be much further ahead. And although I don't think you're going to have any more success than I had in having this supported, and I'm not going to support it for the same reasons everybody else has. Although I think what I'll bring forward later maybe speaks better to being able to preserve this as a living unit.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. I'd actually like to ask staff, what is the likelihood that we're going to run into issues if we allow somebody to live into this unit, knowing that we're planning on taking it down or relocating it later?
Good evening, through the mayor to you, Councillor Mary Musson, Commissioner of Community Services and Social Development. I can tell you that it has been a struggle when it comes to ending tenancies in single dwelling units, with the finances necessary to provide property management services for a single dwelling unit that's not in a cluster of a housing project. The cost of monthly rent would just cover the operational needs annually.
Okay, so would we run into a problem though, trying to have the person leave even though they know they're coming in, with the destination of that house not being there later?
Through the chair, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, call the vote on the amendment.
The amendment is lost on a recorded vote of 2-8. Members of council vote in favor. Councillors Van Tilburg and Samuel. Members opposed. Councillor Sullivan, Celeste McCurry, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor David.
Councillor Hunt.
So I had a question for staff on the main resolution. So E says that following the closing and the seller exiting property, staff be directed to demolish the structure. So my first question is, do we have to apply for a demolition permit for property we own ourselves?
Through the mayor to the councillor, that is correct. We would have to apply in the course of the building code to apply for that demolition.
And further to that, Joe, what would be the process if we wanted to sell the house, the home, with the condition that it has to be moved from the property?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I think that's something staff can investigate and look into in terms of other, home movers, a similar situation that happened with the Charlotte Crystal Cottage, where they would move it somewhere else. And if someone has interest, then we would have to work with those groups to go ahead and apply for that opportunity.
So the way that this is written, E, that staff be directed to demolish the structure on the property, doesn't give you the option to explore the selling of the actual building and having someone move it, does it?
Through the mayor to yourself, that is correct.
Okay, so on that note, I have a small amendment. That staff be directed to dispose of the structure on the property as they see fit.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Martin is seconding that. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, I think I'd like to offer an amendment which would perhaps clarify this direction. If the clerk could put up what's before us now on the screen. The amendment, rather. Thank you. Having seen that, I think I can offer something which is perhaps more pointed if this is defeated. Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the, Councillor Scully.
Perhaps looking for clarity from clerks, because I'm interpreting the way this is written as dispose of the structure as they see fit, as in we would be able, staff would be able to remove or sell just the structure, and I'm seeing nodding. So, and I understand that what I'm thinking might be coming is a very similar amendment. So if we defeat this, are we able to even bring it back to the floor since it's of the same merit, we'll say?
We can't really comment on it until we actually see that this is
Okay,
defeated,
so-
what the next one is.
Okay.
So
well-
Councillor Hunt, would you like to speak to your amendment?
So speaking to the amendment, as we've heard from staff, if we pass this resolution as it is, E directs staff to demolish the structure on the property. And so we've heard from staff that that does not give staff the opportunity to potentially sell the home that's there and have it moved, which would realize some profit versus just bringing forth a demolition permit and having it demolished. So that was my rationale for the amendment, giving staff the direction to decide the best course of action for the home that's sitting on the property, not that they be directed to demolish it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to call, Councillor Van Tilburg.
On the amendment, as we demolished a home roughly around the corner from that, I was wondering, what is the cost of demolition?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Tilburg, it's probably estimated to demolish a kind of bungalow, single detached home around $50,000 to $60,000.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I'm not sure that we'll have any takers for this, but I think it's worth a try. And it's been suggested that we sell this house. I suggest we give it away and just take the savings of the demolition, with the idea that we're not going to pay big bucks to help them move it, like we got stuck with the Crystal Cottage fiasco. But I think it has merit for staff to offer the building up for free or for $1, whatever the law requires. So that's why I seconded this amendment, and I'd either like to see this pass or something similar. Thank you.
Councillor Curry.
Let me try an amendment which may offer clarity, if I may. Is that good, Mayor? With your leave, your blessing?
Let's hear what it is.
Seeking a seconder, after the Councillor Hunt amendment, we would add, including exploring the opportunity to offer the structure to a willing buyer or transferee to be relocated at their expense to a lot owned by the transferee or buyer.
Is there a seconder on that? Councillor Sullivan. Any discussion on the amendment to the amendment?
If I may.
Go ahead.
Speaking to it and having some experience in the pros and cons of moving buildings, it's not cheap, and staff could very well decide whether or not we would want to offer it at public tender, perhaps, to the highest bidder. The highest bidder, I'm sure, would probably be somewhere in the vicinity of $1 to $100, keeping in mind the expenses involved, the insurance, the remedial work that would have to be done on the site, and so on and so on. But I think it's a worthwhile project. It would gain us experience in doing this as well, and it may just provide one lucky family with the opportunity to own their own home for a heck of a lot less than it would cost to buy an existing building on an existing lot in the city. It's not politically sexy, but I think it's worth supporting.
Well, I'll speak to them with the amendment. It's too complicated. I think Councillor Hunt's, I'm gonna vote in favor. Would not vote in favor of this, but vote in favor of Councillor Hunt's amendment, because I like Councillor Hunt's amendment. It's simple. It gives staff the direction that they say they understand what it means, and it gives them the options that would allow them to do even what it is that Councillor McCreary is suggesting. So with that, I'm going to call the vote on the amendment to the amendment. No, we're voting Councillor McCreary's amendment.
The amendment to the amendment carries on a recorded vote of 6-4. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste, McCreary, Van Tilburg, Samuel Martin. Members opposed: Councillors Hunt, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
Okay, I'll call the vote on the amendment as amended. Ian. No, you get another right after this.
The amendment as amended carries on a recorded vote of 8-2. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste, McCreary, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel Martin, Mayor Davis. Members opposed: Councillors Sokoli and Caputo.
Okay, so we have this resolution that's now amended. Any further debate before I call the vote on the resolution as amended? Councillor Scully.
Well, now I'm just left with more questions. So we're gonna try to sell just the house. For how much? To who? Are we gonna have a bidding war? Who's gonna list it? For how long are we gonna try to sell this house before we just move forward to demolish it? I know nobody can answer those questions because I wasn't allowed to ask them during the amendment, but I'm just left with more questions, and now I feel like I want to defer or refer this back to staff to look into it more. Because we came up with some half-baked amendment on the floor that nobody really now knows what to do with. So I'm gonna move a referral to send this back to staff to bring back some information on how we're gonna sell just a house now. I have it seconded by Councillor Caputo. I want to refer it back to staff for one cycle.
So you're deferring it for one second. So if you're referring it, so you're out.
Sure, I'll defer it one cycle.
Okay. So motion to defer is not debatable as to merits, just time and place. So I'm going to call the vote on the motion to defer by one cycle.
The deferral is lost in a recorded vote of 2-8. Members of council voting in favor: Councillors Sokoli and Caputo. Members opposed: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste, McCreary, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel Martin, and Mayor Davis.
Okay, so we have the resolution as amended. It's still open for any further debate. Not Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you very much. Well, tonight we've heard a number of descriptions for items of work brought forward by councillors. Resolutions can be grandstanding or politically sexy, and now we have heard the term half-baked, which I think means it would apply to a potato, perhaps, which has not been cooked to the point to which it is edible. But I don't think it's a proper reference to an amendment. And of course, no one was named, but Councillor Hunt and I brought amendments. So I guess one of us is half baked, perhaps the other one is fully baked, because that was not cited. But I think, Mayor, you might want to, and this applies to yourself as well, Mayor, as well as the remainder of the body of this committee. You might want to be more careful about how folks in this room speak about one another and how folks are directed.
Point of order, comments were made towards the amendment, not the person, and those are allowed.
I believe I had the floor and I
Yeah,
wasn't citing any risk to a counselor having to apologize. Simply stating.
Councilor
my
Creed,
view on
you
it.
just finished your comments. Thank you.
I would have, Mayor, if you hadn't interrupted. Now I'm finished. Thank you.
And so Councilor Samuel.
Thank you. I'm going to keep this really simple and not call anything other than the fact that regardless of the outcome tonight, this means somebody's going to get to use that house. And so I'm happy about that. Thank you.
All right, going to call the vote on the resolution as amended.
4.1 as amended carries unanimously and recorded with a 10 to 0. Members of council vote in favor. Councillor Sullivan, Celeste McCurry, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
Okay. So I'll move on to notices of motion. We have 3 notices of motion. Councilor McCreary, if you please read the title of your 15.1.
Mayor, thank you. It's a politically sexy nom, Aquatics Toonie Tuesdays.
Thank you.
Following that-
That's, you read the title only. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't hear you.
Yes, you read the title only.
Title only, okay, without
Thank you.
a descriptor or a modifier.
Correct.
Point taken.
Councilor Samuel, 15.2.
Bell Homestead to celebrate the 150th. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We were on the politically sexy thing.
Bell Homestead to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the first successful long distance phone call.
Well, Councilor McCreary, you can read the title of the 3rd one.
And my apologies to Councillor Samuel for trying to jump the queue. Brantford to compete nationally in Communities in Bloom.
All right, so we'll move on to bylaws, and Councilor Samuel, you have the motion to approve all the bylaws not separated. Will you please read that and state your seconder.
Okay. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Van Tilburg, and bear with me, these are long. So 2026 bylaw to appoint a member of council to a board, 2026-125, City Council Urgent Report 02-24-26, 2021-2026 bylaw, or being a bylaw to adopt the Brantford Economic Development Community Improvement Plan area, 2026-151, Committee of the Whole, Planning and Administration Report 2026-310. 2026, bylaw to amend bylaw 70-2010 by amending corporate 010 delegated authority respecting appointment of members of the Municipal Compliance Audit Committee, 2026-156, Committee of the Whole, Planning and Administration Report 2026-03 or 010. And then 2026 bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw number 135, 2006, bylaw to authorize a franchise agreement with Enbridge Gas, 2026-11, Committee of the Whole, Planning Administration Report 2026-0310, and then 2026 bylaw to amend bylaw 4/2026, regulate vacant buildings, 2026 46, Committee of the Whole, Planning Administration Report 2026-0310. 2026 bylaw to amend Chapter 206, 2026-159, Committee of the Whole, Planning of Administration Report 2026-0310. 2026 being a bylaw to amend Chapter 478, Signs, Outdoor, Other Advertising Devices 2023-524, Committee of the Whole, Planning Administration Report 2024-0611. 2026 bylaw to amend Chapter 26, Boards and Advisory Committees of the City of Brantford Municipal Code by adding committee work plan and to amend Chapter 15, Procedure Notice Requirements For advisory committees, 2026-73, Committee of the Whole Planning Administration Report 2026-0310, and 2026 being a bylaw to amend chapter 261 of the Municipal Code Development Charges 2026-157, Finance Committee Report 2026-0311. 31-2026 being a bylaw to amend 124-2024 as needed, as amended, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the city of Brantford, a bylaw to regulate the use of lands and the location, erecting, and use of buildings and structures in the city of Brantford, 2026-115 Planning Committee Report 2026-0312. 32-2026 bylaw to approve the purchase of certain lands and premises within the city of Brantford, 131-2026 special council meeting, March 10th, 2026. And 33-2026 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the city of Brantford with respect to the meeting held on March 24th, 2026. Thank you.
Anybody need anything separate for discussion purposes? Not seeing that, a request, so I'll call the vote.
Through the approval of all bylaws, carries unanimously and recorded vote of 10-0. Members of council vote in favor. Councilors Sullivan, Celeste McCreary, Hunt, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
All right, we'll move on to ward announcements as we sign the bylaws. Councilor Van Tilburg, we'll start with you first. Councilor Samuel.
All right. So I have a few. So I wanted to mention that Laurier is having their Market Fest 2026. This will be Thursday, March 26th from 11 to 6 p.m. It's in Peace and Friendship. It's at One Market, and it's an Indigenous arts and culture event. I also wanted to mention that the East Ward Echo Place Neighborhood Association is holding a spring fling dance at the Gunners Club on April 4th. And that doors open at 5:30, and more information can be found on their Facebook page. And we're excited that in Eagle Place that there's going to be an open house for a community garden that's going to go into Tootla Park. And that will be April 9th, 4 to 7 p.m. for people to come out to Doug's Nooks and learn more about the community garden that's being proposed. And I just wanted to mention, and there's such a huge list that I'm not going to list them all, but the Brantford Poppy Project has a large amount of workshops coming up that are for learning how to make poppies and crochet and knit them for a very important project. So you can find that also on their Facebook page.
Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. April 11th, the Brantland Neighborhood Association has their year-end volleyball tournament and banquet, which is the wrap-up of a successful season. They had 30 teams participating this year in the volleyball league. And April 18th, there is a Silver Creek cleanup. If you'd like more information, you can reach out to me, but it's being organized by some of the residents that live along Silver Creek.
Councillor Sluss.
Yes, tomorrow evening at the Gretzky Sports Center, or pardon me, at the Gretzky Golf Course, Councillor Caputo and I are hosting a award meeting regarding safety in the Myrtleville Mayfair area, and we encourage all folks to get out. I believe it's 6 o'clock start, and all the various agencies will be there, from police to traffic, etc., to have a wholesome discussion on safety in that neighborhood. And I guess secondly, my announcement would be, thank God every year is an election year. Things tend to get a little bit silly around this table when we get to about this time of the year. And it would be nice if everybody just kind of kept their cool and acted in a responsible manner. So hopefully we can have serious discussions. We still have a lot of work to do as a community, and we've still got a number of months left in front of us to move the community forward. So hopefully everybody can take heed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Caputo.
Thank you. Well, the Homedale Neighborhood Association is going to be hosting their Easter egg extravaganza on March 28th from 1 to 3 p.m. at TV Costain S.C. Johnson Community Center. Just a reminder to parents to have your kids registered for this particular event. And as for Brantford Station, they're going to be participating in an unsmoke butt blitz with the green team to clean up cigarette butts around the BGH on April 4th from 11 to 1. And they'll also be hosting an Earth Day cleanup on April 18th from 10 to noon. They have their teen game and karaoke night, which continues to grow in popularity. They're averaging over at least 20 teens in a safe and welcoming environment to play games, listen to music, and socialize. And their next night is April 4th to 7th. And to congratulate the Brantford Station Neighborhood Association, they were awarded a $1,000 grant from Participaction to host community events to help get them up and active for the month of June. And both these neighborhood associations I'm pleased to say that these events are completely not unbaked.
Glad to hear that. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Just a couple of things. First and foremost, I just want to plug another reminder about the autism awareness flag raising on April 2nd at 4, but also that construction work will be resuming for Balfour Street between Gilkinson and Mount Pleasant, looking to be wrapped up by July. And other than that, happy Easter for those who celebrate.
Councillor Sakota.
All I have is happy Easter.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I don't have any award announcements either. Just wish everybody a happy Easter. And now that the Bulldogs are in the playoffs, go Dogs, go.
Councillor McCurdy.
Mayor, thank you very much. I do have a few announcements. Lori and I were at the Bachmania Symphony Orchestra event on the weekend, and it was kind of a bittersweet day for those folks. They said farewell to their conductor, Philip Sarabura, and the concert master, Leslie Dawn Knowles, both of whom have been there for ages, and they have some big shoes to fill. Our summer student grant program is open for applications now. It closes May the 15th. You can sign up at brantford.ca/summer company, and young folks can get up to $3,000 to fund their summer company. Larry Brock, our esteemed member of parliament, is holding a passport clinic that happens on March the 31st at the Polish Hall at 154 Pearl Street. Candidate Info Night number 2 happens here in the Chambers, 15 April at 6. There's something called Hop Into Easter going on at Linden Park Mall, Saturday the 4th of April. Kids young and old can go get their faces painted, get candy. They have an egg station, a bubble show, whatever that is. And of course, the big guy himself, EB, will be there. Brant Minnesong have a big day coming up April the 11th. It's called their Day of Choral Singing. Those of you who may want to experience choral singing, and I know there are a number of good voices in this council chamber because I hear you every council night singing O Canada. That's 11th of April at Hope Church, 1 in the afternoon at 64 Buchanan. There's a bottle drive by the Girl Guides happening Sunday the 29th. Leave your beer bottles, your wine bottles on the porch by 10 o'clock and they'll come and pick them up. The city grants program is open for applications to nonprofits. They have an operational stream, a capital startup stream, and an event stream. Deadline April 15, brantcommunityfoundation.ca, our third party. Spring and summer fun guide is out, brantford.ca/fun guide. Congrats to our folks in Brantford Tourism. They're finalists for the Regional Tourism Award for their hard work on Councillor Caputo's Beats and Eats Festival. Lastly, the artist call for the mural on the water reservoir is open now, closes April 10th. You can get in line for that, make your application and submit your artwork. Brantford.ca water reservoir mural. Thank you.
Thank you with that. And with that, I'll adjourn the March council meeting.